Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. My name is Andrew, and we are on episode 9 of Breaking into Cyber, and I'm very excited to share one of my good friends and mentees who I've been now known for about over a decade, Alex. Alex Householder, and I'm going to do a quick introduction for Alex, and then we're going to go ahead and get this whole thing started. So, Alex Householder is a junior cybersecurity professional with just over a year of experience supporting national defense and criminal infrastructure protection. Currently serving as a 17 Charlie Cyber Operations Specialist in the United States Army Reserve, Alex is part of a cyber protection team and a cyber incident response team, which focuses on real world defense against active threats targeting enterprise scale environments. Throughout his military tenure, Alex has combined tactical discipline with advanced technical skills. He has been part of a team which conducts digital forensics, memory analysis, and network traffic capture using tools such as Snort, Wireshark, and industry recognized NIST standards to mitigate cyber threats across an enterprise network. His roles also include executive level briefings on threat intelligence, incident response strategy, and zero trust architecture implementation. Alex, super glad to have you on the channel and welcome.
Thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here.
So, Alex, I know we've known each other for about 10 years, and we met back in the military, actually back when we weren't even considering or talking about cyber, back when we were actually in the military 56 MP company here in Mesa.
Oh yeah.
And I know you have tons of stories that you and I can both share. And I think this will kind of come out in my first question for you. So, cybersecurity is not something that everyone kind of walks up and wakes up and wants to do it at first. Obviously, I was a law enforcement officer before getting into cyber. Yourself, you were kind of in that same pipeline, I think, initially getting into the military police corps and maybe going law enforcement. But then you kind of shifted that paragon and going into cyber. What was the initial spark maybe that made you want to go interested into that field?
So I think what it initially was is I was looking for jobs. I was just coming off of mobilization, and I was looking for jobs for physical security. And two of the things I noticed right off the bat were number one, I saw a distinct lower pay, and then I also saw there weren't a lot of specific jobs for that. So I stumbled upon a post for a cybersecurity position. I was like, this looks interesting. And then as I started going more into it, started learning some of the initial certs, which the first certification I learned about was Security Plus, and seeing how it also blended some of those physical security elements. That's what made me realize, like, hey, I can make this jump, and it looks like really interesting work. Mind you, too, though, my initial perception of how cyber worked and hacking was very Hollywood inspired as well, which I feel like that's what gets a lot of people initially into it is it's like, oh, this is so cool. And then you learn it and you're like,
Hoodies on, fingers on
yeah.
keys, guys, I'm in. So, no, I mean, that's pretty interesting. And I mean, I know when you made your initial hop, I mean, did you have kind of a path you wanted to go down? Did you know what you wanted to do in cybersecurity? Or kind of like what was big picture, little picture that kind of was going through your thoughts?
So initially what I was looking at is number one, I was working on Security Plus, and I was like, I purchased the CompTIA one because I didn't really know my education benefits for the Army at the time. So I purchased the CompTIA, like the full exam voucher where they teach you everything, and then you get a exam voucher and a retest voucher with it as well. Um, and my goal was to finish that, and then I was also trying to get in contact with ASU for their cybersecurity program, which was a little rough trying to get that. But I started looking around and doing all that, and then the goal was basically to find that. I also started to try and build up some connections in my network. For example, I leveraged some family to get in contact with a CISO for a company called SwitchSync. His name was John Stream. Really great guy. Really helped point me in the right direction at first, where he told me to kind of like start looking for those lower level jobs, and he told me to build my first lab, which I did, and I got to learn a lot about operating software and kind of how Linux worked in itself before I even started officially training. Eventually, that was the reason why I ended up working at Iron Mountain. Is I was looking for a position that would get me in contact with people that would allow me to network and then would leverage that physical security, because the hardest thing is to show the, hey, yeah, I did this job that had nothing to do with tech, and then move it over to a job that is dealing with tech of like, hey, I still have these core skills of being a lifelong learner and being really quick on the uptake, but it's
Yeah.
really hard to show that initially to a recruiter.
Yeah, and a lot of people have that hard. understanding and kind of that honestly the bridging that gap is I think one of the most difficult parts when it comes to moving over and transitioning out of one field to the next. I know for myself, it took about a year to get fully invested into the new role with the state, where that's honestly where we kind of back and actually got to bump heads again,
Hmm.
working at Iron Mountain, which those that don't know, Iron Mountain is a data center here in the valley that honestly a perfect place to work because not only are there is like the state and other organizations keep their servers there, a lot of big organizations are there that the folks coming in there are engineers, managers, CISOs. So when you talk about networking, I mean, like, yeah, you want to shake hands and get people to recognize your face. Like, hey, I'm trying to get into the industry. I want to be an analyst. Start at the bottom, work my way up. I mean, that's a great way also to still leverage networking. And I tell a lot of people too that I was talking to one gentleman that works for the city of Gilbert here. He's a mechanic. Same thing, wants to pivot into cyber. I told him the same thing. Like, dude, you're in a perfect spot. Leverage the city, talk to their cyber team, see if they'll let you shadow, work on training and certifications that the city would pay for to get you into a better understanding of like what you would need to pass an interview. And kind of goes into the next probably great question, Alex. So like when you were kind of moving over and transitioning from, I'd say, physical security at Iron Mountain to you joined actually my unit at the cyber protection team, which in a sense is where you really got to get the pivot and dive really deep into cybersecurity. What was that like?
It was honestly, well, first there was that initial like wind out of the sails of like because you see like the way hacking everything works, and then like you like actually get to see it, and you're like, this really isn't as like
Don't
crazy as I
don't
thought it
look don't
was.
look behind the curtain. You see nothing.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So there's that, but then like you get that new passion of like, wait a second, this is actually really simple, and I can learn this. And it was really fun, especially like so when I first got to the unit, there was a lot of time where I was drilling with the unit before I went off to school, and I actually got to learn a lot about how the unit functions and like essentially how we train. The environment was completely different from a standard line unit too. It was definitely more of a corporate environment, which was nice. Like, I mean, it was nice to go in there. I think what made me realize of like I'm so happy I'm here is I was sitting in the drill room. Everyone was there. There was silence for a moment. Someone turns their chair around and they go, "Okay, someone explain to me how you can know how to fix something, but you can't know how to remake it." And they were talking about Warhammer, which is something I'm really into. And we did like to say too for the cyber school, you have to pick like one nerddom to choose before you like become official in cyber. Um, but yeah, it was that moment where I'm like, man, I'm gonna fit in great here.
You're among friends.
Yeah,
So
it was a great.
it's so funny that when people look into and exactly that and like I always tell people like my channel is not a recruitment video. It's not I don't push people like you should join the army because they can do this XYZ. But the military, in full honesty, if it's something that you're willing to adapt to and learn and go do, you and I have leveraged our military careers very full heartedly to really ingest and digest our careers into cybersecurity. So, obviously, once we ingested Alex into our ranks at the cyber protection team, we went and did what any unit does: is we send our soldiers to go train. And I think that's going to be one small good piece of this kind of chat too, Alex, of maybe getting to explain what 17 Charlie course is, and it's in the great home of our cyber, Fort Eisenhower in Augusta, Georgia. And what kind of things did you learn there? Things you can talk about, obviously. We're not going to get into the nitty gritties, but just kind of
So
high level aspect.
so they start off. So it's an army course, and one thing I really love about the army, I have my complaints
The
as any. Yeah.
TFAC.
Um, but one of my great things I love about the army is that they're willing to give people the chance, and that's something that a lot of corporations I don't feel do that as much anymore, especially with
Yeah.
certifications. The army's like, hey, if you can prove that we can teach you, we will teach you,
Yeah.
and
You'll
even
see a corporation list there hiring junior analyst, CISSP, 10 years of networking experience. I'm like, does this say junior? Anyway,
yeah,
keep going. Keep
well,
going.
and then they still teach them, and but yeah, so like you start out, they honestly teach you as if you've never touched a computer in your life, like you grew up in a cave and you never even like a computer's just magic to you. So you start out learning everything from like how it works to its electrical components, all the way to by the end of it, your culmination is you are responding, you're doing incident response in a sort of exercise and you get to work as a team with these people that you've been training with like this entire 9 month period, which by that point, whether you like them, hate them, love them, you understand them. So it's really easy to know what people are good at, what people suffer from, and then how to work together as a team, who are the leaders. But yeah, it was really great training. I like to say too, like the schoolhouse was amazing. I tell the instructors all the time, like, anytime I was feeling a little down, I'd be like, the schoolhouse is not the problem. The schoolhouse is great. Like their teaching style, the instructors all there, like they want to teach, and if they don't want to teach, they get removed really quickly. Like
Yeah,
they're on point.
it's important to have good instructors that are behind the passion of teaching. Not everyone can be a teacher, and there's nothing against those that try to do it and they're not successful at it. You have to have the passion for it. You have to be willing to talk to people. You have to be willing to understand that you might have to rephrase the same question 25 times for
Oh yeah.
that one person to understand what you're trying to get across. But just like you said too, and I love how you mentioned it toward the end, how you kind of like do a SOC environment scenario of a live incident response, just like
Mhm.
a security operations center. So I tell a lot of folks, and I tell even a lot of my managers I talk to, that when we see applicants come through when it comes to interviewing, I'm like, hey man, they were 17 Charlie with the cyber team. They can do this job. They were there for a year. They learned everything from PowerShell, Linux, network tunneling, IR response, Metasploit, Metasploit Venom, uh, pivoting, escalation, uh, you name it, in a sense of
Yeah.
like how to write reports. I mean, they could, anyone that comes out of that course 100% can come onto as a junior analyst at any
I
organization and be successful.
I would also like to point out too that one thing that also is crazy with it is so you're basically doing a degree in cybersecurity for at least for the, I can't speak to the warrant officer course
Yeah,
because obviously you have to be specialized by that point, but at least for the 17 Charlie, the enlisted route, um, you're learning at a very fast pace. Like it's literally go go go. Like I want to say I didn't catch my breath. Really, like it didn't start feeling like, ooh, I can take a little bit of break until like towards the end. But like starting out, it was like every 2 weeks we had a test. If that, sometimes it was one test a week, and
yeah,
it was one of those things where you got so you would get about two chances to take the test. So you take it. If you fail it, you'd retake it, and then if that didn't go through, like if you failed it again, you would be recycled, and you'd redo that whole module over. So you'd be getting twice as much training time.
yeah.
Retake it again, and at that point, they would remove you from the school if you failed. But they were clear too of like, hey, we're not calling you. You're not stupid. You're not dumb. Like it's just you cannot learn at the pace that we need you to learn. But
it's
it's
it's a fast pace, and
mhm,
honestly, even the warrant officer course is just as fast as a pace as that as well. And it's not, everyone has a different way to learn things. I'm very much a hands-on learner. Some people could just read the material and it's stuck. I had to beat it in my head with multiple iterations and reps to understand concepts. But I think it's important that what you leverage out of those skills, and then obviously getting to have you come back to the unit and getting to talk with you, it was so odd, like that, the before and after, it was like a completely different level of understanding, which is fantastic. And
oh yeah.
that's what we want when we send folks over to the schoolhouse and our cyber, which they do it. Yeah, the schoolhouse and what they do and all their instructors are fantastic. So another pivoting question I have, Alex. So, I mean, you've been actively interviewing, and I've explained this. We were talking before we started
Mhm.
the recording tonight. Alex is up for grabs, everybody. So, CISOs and everyone else that does watch this, please like and subscribe. But also, I'm going to be dropping Alex's information in the channel at the end of this. But uh, tentatively, I think and we've talked about this. Like, Alex will be gone and hired in the next 30 days. So, and that's what that's what I am projecting. So, because at least from what we've been having our conversations about, and how I've been mentoring Alex now for probably just about 2-3 years now, before and after Schoolhouse.
Mhm.
And you're on all the right paths and trajectories to kind of be successful. When it comes to the interview process, Alex, what are some things you've liked and disliked that companies have done, or maybe questions they've asked that, for those trying to get into the industry and are going to be taking these entry level positions? What are some questions you think are some important things that people should know for these kind of positions?
I would definitely say first of all, the most important thing to success is networking and knowing someone in the company, because I've noticed that like the hardest part of the interview process is just getting a human eyes on your paper,
Yeah.
specifically the person, because by the time the person that actually is like going to be interviewing you for the job gets that, your resume, it's already gone through like three different filters at the very least. ATS is a huge barrier. One of the ways I got around it is I actually used a
Knock
website.
knock out the abbreviation for ATS real fast for those
Oh,
that don't
sorry.
know what ATS is. No,
Yeah.
you're fine.
So ATS is a applicant tracking system. It's usually when you hear people, they're like, "Oh, AI is ruining the job market and all this." Um, so one of the big things with it is that what it does is it basically takes it, gives your application a score for what you put in, and it will, depending on that score, it will give it either like, let's say they want, hey, if they hit 75%, we want to put human eyes on this. So we'll drop everything that doesn't meet that. Now, unfortunately, because it's an AI, it can only deal with what it's been inputted. Sometimes, if your resume isn't formatted correctly, if it's in an improper text document, if it just the machine just won't read it, and you won't even
Yes.
get picked up.
Yep.
So I've gotten more interviews since I've started using a Earn Better is what the website's called, but they'll also generate you a resume and a cover letter. So it really makes it a lot easier to like put out quality quantity.
Yeah, and I think when you mentioned it to me, I actually got to pivot to the site. It's actually very user friendly. There's no paywalls. I think I just logged in through Gmail because I think Gmail is the easiest way to link
Mhm.
things to simple accounts so I can log in. And exactly that, like you'll pretty much you'll upload a single copy of like you'll call it your OG or original resume, and then even with that, it can like refine it and make it more, we'll call it poppin'. And then, but as more and more positions apply and arise from there, arise. Anyway, if you know. Uh, but you can actually, there's also, I think, a job tracker on there as well, which
Yep.
I've heard tons of people like, I've applied for 200 jobs. And sometimes I laugh at that because I'm like, you probably haven't. Or like, I've interviewed 500 times this year. I'm like, man, when I was even trying to get into the industry, I could say I probably applied 100 places and interviewed 20 times. To do 100 interviews and track that, I'd say unless you have that track, that's to me that's ridiculous, and I think that's slightly over exaggerating. But I understand the aspect of it too, right? And you definitely know this, Alex. Like from what
Mhm.
you've been trying to get into for applications right now. First off, breaking through the HR algorithm is a pain in the butt.
Mhm.
The ATT systems and like ideally, there used to be an old trick that I think some people still do is they'll take
That
the
was a
job
meta.
they'll take the job edit, they'll take the job description, they'll font it to like one or two, and then clear or white text it and put it onto the bottom of their resume. That
Oh yeah.
way, their resume will get flagged as like a perfect fit because it has all the matching words. But then the resume gets through to a real person, like, hey, like, so it said you had PowerShell experience, but like, we can't see any PowerShell experience at all on your resume, and you're like, that's weird. And it's just,
Well, and like, and like I said, it's hard. I mean, like, and some of it too is also like, I've talked to, like I have family that they work in a corporate level environment, and I've talked with them of like how it goes when they talk with their recruiters, and there's also some misconceptions with jobs sometimes, and it's just their recruiters, they have to be general purpose, where they think like this is the candidate they want, need, and it's like, no, this is best case scenario.
yeah,
We want someone that just did their what I've been told, best quote I've heard so far from someone else at our unit, was, if it was up to them, they're just looking for someone that can hold a conversation and isn't a weirdo. Um,
yeah. I've talked to a few different hiring managers now, Jeremy Giroux, Adam Pena, and talking to them specifically too. They're when you're going to hire a new position and you're going through either a recruiter or the HR folks that you recruiting, you will tell them what you want. Like, hey, I want someone that has certifications, they have a degree in cybersecurity, and they understand like EDRs and SIM. And if that's all they tell the recruiter, it's still the recruiter's sometimes job to then generate said job requirements, unless they are given blanketed like specific things from that hiring manager. So sometimes, like, and we've laughed at this, and even the unit and folks on social media they'll highlight and find junior entry level positions that require 10 years of experience, that require 5 SAN certifications. SAN certifications are $10,000 each to take. Hold the CISSP. CISSP is not an entry level certification. And trying to get past that aspect of just like that. Most positions, especially at the entry level, can be taught. There's onboarding for a reason. There's SOPs and procedures and trainings for a reason when you come onto an organization. And Arizona is a right to work state. So not all states are like that, but Arizona is. So like if you get into an organization and you're not a good fit, I mean they have the right to terminate whenever they feel like they want to.
Hmm.
So one thing that I pushed out that my old boss used to tell me, George Wade, and his boss I think mentioned to him, be the best candidate for the role. Know your job. Have strong baseline fundamentals, and as long as all those things are sturdy, you can refine all those additional skills that will the next job will find you. It's not you having to find the job; the next job will find you.
Oh yeah, and I know like too, like once that's the it's just finding that initial job too, because that's the hardest thing is like because they I've been told in the past too. I think it was actually with the Department of Homeland Security, I believe is who I applied with, where they initially looked at my resume and I had yeah, I was just learning 17 Charlie. I was drilling with the unit, but I didn't really know much cyber stuff. And he looked at it and he's like, "This is not the resume of a cyber analyst." Um, but it's and like I said, it's just one of those things where it's a little bit hard to get over. Um, because obviously too, it's like there's not really a great bridge to cybersecurity when you think about it. Like
Yeah,
a lot of people like it's because they want that experience, but it's hard to get the experience because it's not like it's something you can go and get an internship with. Um,
yeah. You have to be in college, or you have to be going through SkillBridge,
mhm.
or you're. It's but it's just like that. Like when it comes to getting experience, now I'd say there's a lot better resources, when it comes to free resources. Like try Hack Me, Hack the Box,
Oh yeah.
just hacking, uh, Hack Smarter with Tyler Ramsby. Um, there's Discord groups, there's YouTube channels, Pico CTF, and there's all these different avenues now that I think are really coming out of the cracks and stuff when it comes to having better pipelines into getting into cyber. That are much more user friendly. Like I know that, and me and Alex have talked about this, and I've mentioned it on probably all of my videos recently. Like Sec Plus used to be that entry certification, and you know where I'm going at with this. It used to be the
Yep.
entry level certification, but now most places are wanting to see the CYSA for just getting into the doors at entry level, saying, "Hey, you understand basic cybersecurity analysis before we can even let you in the door to be a junior analyst." Which I have mixed feelings on that because I think honestly, just alone holding your security plus and showing the intent to learn, the willingness to grow, being reliable, being a good worker and showing up to work on
Mhm.
time, not calling out sick, showing up in office. I know a lot of folks are wanting the perfect remote job these days. Hybrid and full office is, and many organizations are coming full swing back to office.
I've seen a lot of positions too. So one thing I will say too in the job hunt, I've noticed that remote positions, pay excluded pretty much, but I've noticed that a lot more of them have a ton of applicants to those versus a lot more of the hybrid and other ones. They
Yep.
generally have less. On LinkedIn, one of the things that's great about it is obviously yes, it interconnects us and allows us to see opportunities we may have missed, but it also puts you in competition with a lot more people that like back in the day you probably didn't have to compete with because they had no way of seeing those jobs.
No, 100%. And you're smack dab on the money. And I think, like you said too, and we're going to kind of pivot back into the networking conversation here in a second. Yeah, having remote jobs is awesome. Being remote's perfect. But now you're competing with the other 49 states because now you can work anywhere, even sometimes Oconus across the sea, and now work in these U.S. positions working remotely. I mean,
Mhm.
I could pick up remote jobs over in Australia and Germany, even honestly, if they're willing to take U.S. applicants if it's a remote job. And it stinks because it's taking away the local work for whatever state, country, or place you're at. But it's awesome for those trying to get into the industry. And I know you mentioned this earlier too, Alex, and we've talked, and I think you also went to CactusCon this year, and that's kind of
I wasn't able to go this year because I
ah,
was
that's
yeah I was
right.
still away.
You were still in Georgia. That's right.
Yeah,
But
I
we've
did have a friend go and he said he really enjoyed it though.
and we've okay. I'm thinking like that's what we talked about though. But going to conferences,
Hmm.
networking, going to your local meetups, being in Discord groups, there's so much that that some people I think don't fully understand of like the full power of networking to get that initial interview. Like it's huge.
It is the strongest defense to get past the AI. Like, I'll give an example too. So I'm interviewing again with Wells Fargo next week, and a big reason why I got that interview, I personally feel like, is because I was able to be like, yeah, I've interviewed there before, and they said they really enjoyed me, which they did back up.
Yep. Yep.
But it's something too where it's like, a lot of people don't understand. Like, I also didn't understand how powerful networking is. Like, before I had moved over to cyber, or started my move over to cyber, my job before it was a Home Depot freight associate, because I was working nights and it worked with my class schedule when I was going to college. And with that job, it was literally I showed up and I was wearing a polo, and he goes, "You got the job," and I was like, "That's it." And I did have a great time on that team too. That was a great team to be a part of, which taught me a lot too about like how, if so it's you don't it's a night job, it's working for eight. You don't always get the best people working that job, but it was great because we had a great team. He built a great team, and we'd be done with our job like, it'd be an 8 hour night. We'd be done with our job 4 hours in, because it
Yeah.
was just, and it's something too. I feel like a lot of people, underestimate the value of a great team, those A+ teams, where you'll be like, I'll never get this again.
Yeah, and having good teammates and good managers are huge in any industry. And we've mentioned it, I think, with one of my other videos I'll be dropping here soon with a talk with Jared Robick. Yeah, having a strong and good manager to lead and help deviate teamwork and also just heavy work when it comes to you having to pass out tasks, you're kind of keeping the team on track, is huge. And when it comes to leveling up now, Alex, to be part of that team, what kind of things are you currently doing to kind of keeping yourself sharp and kind of above the curve? Are you going on any training sites, working on any certifications, or what are you kind of doing to keep sharp?
So right now I'm working on two certifications that I'm studying for. One of them is CYSA, which is the new, the new entry level cert.
The new baseline, tone in.
Yeah, which I did see an example of a job where they used to ask for Security Plus. Now they ask for that. Um, and then the other one I'm working on is my Google Project Management.
Nice.
And then some of the other things I'm doing is I've started taking up like little jobs with my family that, it's something too where it's like they all have home networks, and it's something too where it makes those around me safer when they're online, but it allows me to sharpen my skills to also like better protect them. So I see it as a win for both sides. Try Hack Me is another great source where it's like you can go through the rooms as well. I know you had mentioned, and I just saw on your LinkedIn that you just completed that course, so that's definitely one I'm gonna have to go check out next.
Yes.
Um,
Try Hack Me did a great job, and it's yeah, the SOC analyst level 1
mhm.
certification. So it's still up and coming, which I think honestly, so they leveraged it to CYSA and Blue Team level 1. I've heard excellent things about the Blue Team level 1 certifications because I think there's level 1 and 2. So also to anyone that's gone that path and gotten those certifications, kudos. And the reason why is the SOC simulations and the hands-on portions in the exam. So one thing that love hate about CompTIA, there's, and no matter what certification you get, you can learn with any certification you get, but the real question is not just you just get to hang the cert up on the wall and say, "Hey, I have this certification." It's learning and understanding all the concepts, abbreviations, the things in the actual course that you can actually take out and implement. Where when it comes to the Try Me SOC Analyst Level 1 certification and the Blue Team Level 1 certification, you're actually doing hands-on alert detection response. So getting into actually going in through Splunk logs, going in looking at a SIM, and working inside the SOAR, and opening and assigning cases, and writing a case report, tagging true and false positives, determining if you want to escalate it to higher. Those things are huge because I think a lot of folks, when they get into these interviews and they are a great candidate, but then they hear the feedback, well, you're just missing the experience that we need. And okay, well, how can I get the experience if I can't find a job to get the said experience? So it's like a weird OODA loop that a lot of people had, even myself trying to get into the industry initially. I'd have a great, I'm a chatty Cathy, extroverted IT guy, and I love to talk. And I can talk into a resume and out my resume back and forth, and I can talk through an interview and like, man, you're educated, you're punctual, you can hold the conversation, you can break down technical aspects to a low level, but you just don't have the physical hands-on experience we need. I'm like, well, poop. And it's just like, man, it's like, ah. So yeah, it's
Yeah,
definitely frustrating.
I've also noticed too, one thing that a lot of I don't know if any other military personnel run into is misunderstanding of what a security clearance means.
Yeah.
Where I view it as like a level of trust that someone is basically, it's like it's almost like certified trust. It's like you can trust this person to do their job, keep their head down, and do what you tell them to do. But a lot of businesses like have told me, they're like, well, we don't deal anything with government work, and it's like it's not what this is.
Yeah, like this just means that like I'm a trustworthy person and I'm
Yeah.
competent. Like
Well,
no,
and that I
they don't
can.
they don't hand these things out like candy. So
Yeah, well, and it also shows, like I said, it shows that like, hey, like, because obviously cybersecurity, we're in a privileged role where we do have to follow the rules. We have to police
yes.
ourselves, and it's something where it's really easy for someone to abuse that trust if they don't have that like training or something higher riding on it of, hey, do the right thing.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I mean, nail on the head there. Because I mean, and that's one thing too when it comes to those that hold clearances. Leverage those clearances if you're looking for work though. Like so, like MetroStar. I know clearance jobs.
Uh,
Um,
I will say too, for clearance jobs, that's how I currently have a position that I did get a temporary offer from.
oh,
Um,
nice.
It's for Athena Technology Group, and they have 22 positions open in Sierra Vista currently. These positions all require, I believe, TS SCI, but they pay around $90,000. Um, so it's pretty solid position. They're currently in the process of dealing with a protest to their contract right now because they won the contract. Their competitor raised a protest because they felt like they wanted the process reviewed. So they're.
Which is common across organizations when it comes to winning bids and stuff on
Mhm.
government contracts. So it's not unheard of. So working with Leidos, I know that there's tons of stuff when it
Yeah.
comes to pending contracts and taking
I've
over new roles like that as well.
And then currently with other, auditing stuff going on right now, that's another thing where a lot of contracts are getting a little held up, which supposedly, according to someone I talked to today, they're thinking June it should be clearing up. So a lot of those government contracting jobs should be coming back, which is a pretty cool thing. But yeah, they're down there. For what I was talking to them too, um, really like honestly, my clearance was a huge reason why I got that position is because they're like, you've done a 17 Charlie, you've worked in Cyber Command, like we need, this is exactly who we need for this position. But they got a little held up, so now it's looking like August they're going to be starting, but they're still currently filling those jobs.
Yeah, no,
Um,
that's awesome. And it's I tell that to a lot of like I've been getting a few more veterans reaching out as well when it comes into leaving the military side of cyber, breaking into civilian side. And I know I have another video coming out here soon, talking about the skill bridge process when it comes to doing those skill bridge internships with cyber organizations working inside doing incident response or doing
I'm
GRC work or doing SOC analyst work.
I'm actually
And
trying to get one of those skill bridge opportunities right now. I've been working with for the reserve side. I don't know how many people have heard of them. The P3 partnership. They're pretty solid. It's just something where basically they build these partnerships with these private entities to basically get veterans and reserve and in some case National Guard soldiers those jobs. But I've worked with them. They've been really helpful. They're the ones that pointed me towards the Earn Better website. But yeah, they are pretty solid.
no, too awesome right now, Alex. And as always, like we love having people on this channel to get the kind of share their journey and kind of their origin story and the process of kind of building out their story, breaking into this industry. What would you say has been the most difficult part about trying to do this transition, breaking into cyber?
I would definitely say, honestly, like I got lucky being in the army. That was the biggest thing. I will tell you that when I first was starting that transition, there were some things I didn't understand. For example, when I was doing my CompTIA, like the package, and they have some really great labs. I had no idea that when you put in a password for Linux on the command line, that it will not show, and I thought it was a glitch in their software. It's a great little thing. I'm pretty sure they looked at that ticket and they just laughed and just like threw it off into the void. But it was definitely, I would.
User error
Yes.
closed.
So, but it was definitely, I would say, like if it wasn't for that chance meeting we had at Iron Mountain, it would have been a lot harder because I had no idea where I was going. I was struggling a little bit with the way that the CompTIA teaches Security Plus. It was something where it was just I was getting a little bogged down, and then like you gave me that path to where I was able to go get an intern or not an intern, but an interview with the unit. Which, for those that don't know, generally when you join the reserve cyber, you do have to interview with the unit because they are looking for culture fits, which is great. Like obviously they built a really great team there. Um, but yeah, it was definitely like it's finding that path because it's like a lot of people don't really outline it, and it's hard to find that, especially too with the way technology is changing and the way the job environment has changed.
Yeah, and I think it's huge, and that's a big push on this channel of finding mentors and talking, communicating with people, and networking. Because, I mean, I think the same thing when I initially moved over to the unit. I had no real intention going to cyber until I kind of really got some good mentors that started pushing me and really, in a sense, motivating me, just like I kind of tried to motivate you. And asking those tough questions and kind of knowing, like, hey, what's my next step? What should I do? Well, you should look into this. And if you're not
Hmm.
liking that, you can look into this. And hey, I'm not really understanding this. Oh, well, check out Professor Messer. Oh, check out this pocket prep. Or oh, check out this other way that you can learn how to do cybersecurity. And
Yeah, I remember taking you gave me some resources for Security Plus, and I passed it in less than a month.
so proud, so proud. And CYSA will be right in that same path line.
Yeah,
So
it's an interesting thing. I will definitely say there's a lot more on this one. I know they just rolled out with in 2023 they rolled out with the version 3 of the test,
yep.
um, which I like there's a lot of questions on there where I'll do in my practice test. I'm looking, I'm like, I didn't know that. So it's nice to get that learning again too.
Yeah, I remind people too, and across my network, it's like ways that you can practice. Like any CompTIA test I have taken, I pretty much have three different ways of training. So first is probably jumping onto Udemy and grabbing the Jason Dion certification of choice. I will then also go to Jason Dion's 5 practice test pack, and then I will go on to Pocket Prep. And I use Pocket Prep to do all my hand-on studying on the cellular phone
Mm.
because that's always on me. I can do it when I'm in bed. I can do it when I'm walking around, and it's a quick 10-question quiz or a deeper quiz. I can set up the question of the day, and then for the Jason Dion ones, like it's almost like a podcast in a sense when you want to play and listen to it. I can listen to it subliminally when I'm at work. I can listen to it on my drives into work. And then on top of that, there's additional labs and questions you can do within Udemy. And then YouTube has so much stuff now. I've done my walkthroughs on what I've thought about certifications and ways that I studied to be successful. I've bought the books. I've gone through practice quizzes online. I've gone through Professor Messer when I was going through my Security Plus, which Professor Messer almost I think is the king of Sec Plus and his videos and material that you can kind of get. He rules that field. But yeah, just understanding and having someone that you can talk to and reach out to as a mentor,
Mhm.
or vice versa, being a mentee. And when I used to be a mentee, asking my mentors for advice, now being in that mentor role and trying to give said advice that I used to ask and get, that's the whole purpose and kind of bring around for this channel of breaking into cyber. It's providing resources, people sharing their stories of how they're being successful to get into this organization and field, because everyone has a different journey. I used to be a cop. Tyler Ramsby used to be a preacher. Um, uh, Jeremy, I think, used to work outside of Cyber 2, and I can't remember to save my life what he used to do. But it's just like, yeah, there's so many different avenues and paths of what you can do to get here or pivot from to kind of break into the field.
I will say too for the reserve side, one thing I noticed too when I was at Eisenhower is there are not a lot of soldiers joining the reserves for cyber, even though we have tons of positions open for enlisted, which it can, is one of those things too where it's hard to like see that, but I definitely would advise like for people that are younger where they're looking for those like I want to join an organization that's going to give me that level of trust where I can get this training and they're going to invest in me. Yeah, I'm not the biggest, I'm not trying to toot the Army's horn here, but it's definitely something that like I'm going to try and work more towards getting people into because I see it as a great opportunity of like, hey, you can get this training and like come and join a cyber unit where you're going to make also too, you're going to make those networking connections. You're going to get that training. The schoolhouse is great too because obviously like you're dialed in, like you don't really have a lot of options to get distracted.
Yes, no, 100%. And when it comes to paying attention and having I love my family. I'm married. I have 2 kids, and it's just like, but when I know I have a certification coming up, when I was in Eisenhower, if I'm like at working to study, there's in a sense no, I won't call them negative distractions because I love my kids. I love when my door gets knocked on. People, Dad, Dad. I'm like, hold on, kiddo, I'm on a call. But then they come in, they give me a big hug. Hey, okay, just want to give you a hug. I'm like, oh, thanks, dude. Or I'll, and then they run off and I lock the door and I'm like, that was nice. But then I have to get back into my study. Okay, back to the zone and
Yeah.
start going through my quizzes and all that stuff like that. So I totally
Mhm.
understand that too.
Yeah. So and like I said, it's great too because the army is one of those few organizations. Like I feel like a lot of organizations today, they'll invest in people once they're in, but when you're first trying to come in, it seems like they're not really looking for that investment. Like I know there's plenty of companies out there where like once you're in, like your family, like they're like, hey, we're gonna invest in you, we're gonna help you grow as a person and like develop you to where you want to stay in this company. But I feel like the reason why some people kind of like make those jumps where like I was hurt, I got told by a couple of people as well. I've been told like they tell advise me to like jump jobs constantly to like keep growing your salary, and I'm like, that seems weird to me, but that's also something too where it's like I came from a lot of my background stuff was like jobs where I'm like family heritage or something there, and it's like just got to stay there and stay loyal to the company.
Yeah, I've heard mixed. I same thing. I've had mixed conversations on that via through even my mentors of like, hey, sometimes in order to grow, you have to jump. If there's not growth going on in the organization you're sitting at.
Hmm.
But then the question sits like, okay, well, how long do you want to wait in an organization to get that next title? So
Hmm.
some organizations, big or small, if there's hiring freezes, if there's, hey, someone's just in a really cush spot that they really like, they don't want to move, they don't want to grow, they don't want to leave, and they only have one lead role in that position, and they don't plan on getting another one. Okay, do you want to sit there and wait 5, 6 years for that person to leave, retire, get fired, or would you want to just pivot and then get that new experience as a junior engineer or a junior tier two analyst and gain another 3, 4, 5 years of that junior senior now experience where you may have just been sitting waiting for that lead that never leaves.
That
So
was something that happened too with Iron Mountain when I was there. They had a lead position that they just left unfulfilled for a while, and I kept asking them like, "Hey, like when is this going to be up?" And then it was just, "Well, we'll get to it when we get to it." They were going through a lot of changes though, to be fair.
yeah,
So, but it
I
was
can tell
something
you.
too where it's like, "Hey, like I need money is nice." But it's also something too where it's like I'd like to get that responsibility so that way I can like learn more and like start delegating more. But
Yeah,
so, but I'm better for it. I got to do my cyber switch sooner. But yeah, and like I said, the training there was amazing. Like I don't think there was a single day where I wasn't excited to go in. Well, there was one day where I wasn't excited to go in. I will say subnet because we did a subnetting quiz, and they are amazing instructors. But like you go into that quiz and you just everything just goes right out one ear, and you're just like, you're
yeah.
just looking at the test.
Subnetting is not the funnest of sections. I ended up getting to, I think like my third day in, I finally clicked.
Hmm.
But for any of those and all going through CCTC and even across the work environment and wherever you sit for work, right? When you come across those situations or those problems that are difficult, I iterate to you document, document, document. So having a written out, standardized, systematic process to complete a task. And I'm not talking about automation. Like I'm just saying, like, hey, if you need to begin telling a network or enumerating a network, if you don't know it off the top of your head or memorize it, write out those commands and practice it. Like the only way to get better on something is to do it repeatedly. So
So the people we saw that like once we got to phase two and it was more like it was I guess you could say the walk slash run phase. So they don't really teach you as much. They just refresh you on like PowerShell and Linux commands, and then they show you kind of where some stuff is, but it's mainly on you. The biggest thing they always the head on, and the people that found the most success were the people that focused less on like learning on like, hey, like I'm gonna cram everything in, and more about like doing that process of like, okay, I'm gonna try this, and then I'm gonna go to this, and then I'm gonna go to this, where they remember the series of commands they needed over just like, okay, I need to remember this. Like, I think some of the guys that we had that didn't do so well in security, when I talked to them afterwards, I was like, hey man, what happened so I can help you like for your retest? And they went, I just didn't know what to do once I got in the machine. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm like, where specifically? And then from there, I gave them like I copied the little section from my notes. I gave it to them like this is what you need to do when you hit this point.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh,
Standardized and systematic. I use the word and the phrase very religiously in a lot of my talks. And it's just like things change in cybersecurity and things aren't always the same. But having a standardized and systematic process to at least initiate an investigation and complete it will put you leagues ahead of where you need to be. But
yeah.
yeah,
I would definitely say that was one thing too. Like being a former military police, there's a lot of stuff with investigations and the way we do things that allow us to thrive in that in the type of cybersecurity environment. That so obviously I had no real skills going into it. By the end of it, I finished five out of like I want to say we had like maybe 25 people go through our class, and I finished five out of that.
and that's fantastic. And it just goes to show too that if you put your mind in the right place and you repetition and learning and training and uh, as you said, the army gives people the chance to understand it and learn that it can be taught. And it's just a lot of it's just getting through that mental fortitude and getting pushed those hard points and just hey, you know what, this sucks. This is a super hard concept, but you know what? I'm going to finish it. I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to write it down. I'm going to do some homework on my free time, and I'm going to make sure I understand this so I can be successful. And with that, Alex, we're kind of toward the end of the time we have here, but um, really appreciate you always coming on the show. And as a huge thank you, you're going to get some awesome Ginger Hacker swag of your choice from the swag shop. That's how you can support the channel, support the show. But any last pieces of advice for anyone that's right now trying to actively break into cyber?
I would say biggest things is work on their people skills and get out there and network. You know, understand that it's not people don't fear getting interacted with as much as we think they would. That's number one. Number two, if you are younger, like I wish cyber had been around when I first joined the army. I would have jumped right into it, and that's really it. I mean, like you said, it's just you got to keep pushing through it. Eventually, something in your brain chemistry kind of changes, and you actually start getting excited for those challenges.
No, awesome. Well, hey everyone, thank you so much for sticking around to the channel this late. As always, hit that subscribe button, smash that like button, drop a comment. What was your favorite part of this interview? And if you plan on maybe going 17 Charlie for the Army Reserves, they're always looking. So as always, everybody, I'll catch you on the next video.